In a moment of rebirth, I discovered that my innermost thoughts could be heard by my entire family. I have actually been reborn. In my previous life, I was pushed off a cliff by Yue, and it was only in my dying moments that I learned she was the illegitimate daughter of my father and his mistress. This time, I shall not let her escape. Suddenly, my mother next to me trembled with shock. I continued my silent musings. What would happen if my brother were to find out that Yue is about to administer a potion that would render him incapable of having children? My brother abruptly closed his legs tightly. I further contemplated. If Shanye's fiancé, Xiao Jiran, were to learn that she has already bestowed upon him several metaphorical green hats, would he not suffer from cervical spine issues? Xiao Jiran suddenly went weak in the knees and collapsed. Chapter 1. In a moment of rebirth, my innermost thoughts became audible to my entire family. I have returned to life. In my previous existence, I was pushed off a cliff by Yue, and it was only in my last moments that I discovered she was my father's illegitimate daughter with his mistress. This time, I shall not let her escape unscathed. Suddenly, my mother, seated beside me, trembled. I continued to ponder, what would happen if my brother learned that Yue was about to administer a poison that would render him incapable of having children? At that moment, my brother abruptly closed his legs. I further mused, what if Ye's fiancé, Xiao Jiran, discovered that she had already bestowed upon him several metaphorical green hats? Would he not suffer from cervical spondylosis? Xiao Jiran suddenly collapsed to the ground. Miao Miao. If you wish to eat, do so properly. What airs are you putting on? A stern voice broke my reverie and pulled me back to reality. Had I not been pushed off the cliff by Yue, how could I possibly be at home? I had actually been reborn. Reborn a month prior. At that moment, my father was seated in the main position, condescendingly lecturing me. We have guests, and you dare to flaunt such a foul countenance? Yue hurriedly interjected, Father, do not blame my sister. She may still be upset with me. My father slammed the table. This is precisely her nature. She cannot even tolerate a sister. The others in the household nodded in agreement. This was my father, indeed, my biological father, who publicly humiliated me for the sake of another daughter, Yue. Yue was an adopted child when my father brought her into our home. He claimed a fortune teller had foretold that she was a lucky star who would bring prosperity to the Shin family. My mother, a businesswoman, was particularly swayed by such superstitions and thus consented to my father's decision to take her in, raising her from the age of 5 to 18. Treating her as a biological daughter while neglecting me. I watched helplessly as Yue garnered the sympathy of the entire family by feigning misfortune, while I was increasingly marginalized. Every time Yue cried, they would blame me. You possess not an ounce of grace, unable to accept a sister. Ultimately, during a mountain pilgrimage to honor our ancestors, I became separated from my family and was pushed off the cliff by Yue. In my final moments, I uncovered the entire truth about Yue's origins. It turned out that she was not adopted from an orphanage by my father. She was his illegitimate daughter with a mistress. They were plotting to gradually usurp my mother's shares. When the time came, they would welcome the mistress into the family, while my mother would be burdened with immense debt and imprisoned. My two brothers would not fare any better. One, unable to conceive, would take his own life, while the other, having missed his college entrance examination, would fall into despair. My fists clenched tightly as I repeatedly thought, I have been reborn. In my previous life, I was pushed off the cliff by Yue, and it was only in my final moments that I learned she was my father's illegitimate daughter with the mistress. This time, I will not let her get away with it. However, my mother seated beside me suddenly shuddered. She instinctively retorted, What nonsense are you spouting? Yet, I did not respond. Instead, I continued to reminisce internally. If I remembered correctly, at this moment, my elder brother's cup had already been spiked with the poison that would render him incapable of having children. If he drank it, Yue would accuse me and pin the crime of poisoning on me. No, I cannot allow my brother to drink that beverage. Just as I was about to overturn my brother's cup, I noticed he was staring at me with a look of astonishment. What kind of expression is that? Did such a scene occur in my last life? Chapter 2. I was momentarily taken aback, uncertain of how to proceed. However, Yue's voice rang out unexpectedly, Brother, allow me to toast you. With that, she raised her glass, smiling as she prepared to clink it with my brother's. I internally screamed, No, don't drink. Just as I was about to rise and overturn the table, my brother suddenly stood up. His expression was somewhat flustered, his brows furrowed, betraying an unusual lack of confidence. "I'm sorry, I just remembered an appointment and I'm running late. I must take my leave." As he spoke, he stood to depart, hesitating momentarily before taking the drink with him. "It's hot outside, and I fear I may become thirsty on the way. I'll be leaving now," he said with a smile as he exited. I was puzzled. Why was this different from my last life? Clearly, in my previous existence, my brother had unhesitatingly consumed that drink. Yet this time, he took it with him. Meanwhile, my brother sat in the car, visibly unsettled. The driver inquired, "Young master, where would you like to go?" He glanced at the drink beside him, repeatedly wiping his palms. Could it truly be poisoned? How could Yaya possibly wish him harm? Yaya is the kindest. Yaya loves him the most. Yet, his paranoia ultimately led him to relent, to the hospital. Soon, the car arrived at the most prestigious hospital in the city. Meanwhile, the family gathering at home had yet to conclude. I continued to reflect. During this time, my mother had been preoccupied with my second brother's upcoming college entrance examination and had not visited the company for quite some time. My father had long conspired with the shareholders, and soon they would force my mother out of the company, burdening her with immense debt and imprisoning her. In that scenario, my father would marry the beautiful mistress and live a blissful life with Shin Yue, while our family would be irrevocably doomed. I was so absorbed in my own thoughts that I completely failed to notice the changed expressions of my mother beside me and my second brother across from me. They gazed at me in disbelief. I continued to muse. Oh, tomorrow is the day of the college entrance examination. At that time, Shin Yue would tear up my second brother's examination permit and frame me for it. I would become the target of the family's disdain, and afterward, during the mountain pilgrimage, my family would abandon me, leading to my separation from them, and ultimately, I would be pushed off the cliff by Shin Yue. What a cruel scheme. I must warn my second brother today to safeguard his examination permit. I cannot allow Shin Yue to continue framing me. Just then, my father spoke up. "Wife, Shinyi, why aren't you two eating?" Their faces turned pale as they exchanged glances. "Dad, Mom, I'm too anxious about the upcoming exam. I'm going back to study," I said. My mother echoed, "I'm just as nervous as the child. I'll accompany him." My father remained oblivious to what had transpired, simply smiling. "All right, once the exam is over, we'll go on a trip." I was perplexed. Why were they all leaving? This wasn't how it played out in my previous life. As I looked up to observe their departing figures, Xiao Jiran's face came into view. He was one of today's guests, my childhood friend, and Shin Yue's fiancé. I sighed internally, silently pondering, what would Xiao Jiran think if he learned that Shin Yue had already placed several metaphorical green hats on him? Just then, Xiao Jiran's chair suddenly toppled, and he fell heavily to the ground with a thud. Chapter 3. Events began to spiral beyond my control, as I realized they were all behaving differently from my previous life. Why were they acting so strangely? But I had no time for idle speculation. As 8 o'clock was approaching and Shin Yue was about to destroy my second brother's examination permit, I stealthily ascended the stairs and infiltrated my second brother's room, which was eerily empty. The room was pitch black as I searched frantically for my second brother's examination permit, only to be swiftly pulled into the darkness by a hand. I gasped, about to cry out, but that hand covered my mouth. Shoo! I dared not breathe, merely watching as Shin Yue stealthily entered, searching for the examination permit. Where is it? Where could it be? Finally, she discovered it on the bed, with a ripping sound. The permit was shredded. Heh, Shin Miao Miao, if they believe you did this, will you not be cast out of the Shin family? All right, next, I shall come find you. At that point, I'll lure you in and catch you red-handed, huh? What excuse shall I use? Let us say that my second brother has suffered a sudden heart attack. After all, you are the only one who cares about this fool's health. With that, she carelessly tossed the scrap of paper to the ground and left with a laugh. I sank to the floor, and it was then that I discerned the figure behind me. It was my second brother, his eyes glazed over, staring in disbelief at the direction in which Shin Yue had departed. Had I not witnessed it with my own eyes, he would never have believed that Shin Yue could be such a person. No, yeah, she had always loved him most. Yet, the recording pen in his hand continued to emit a faint glow. This served as undeniable evidence. I gently nudged him, How did you know Shin Yue was coming to ruin your examination permit? He met my gaze, and in that moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Was he to say, I can hear what you are thinking? That would be utterly absurd. Seeing him silent, my heart ached. Was he so heartbroken? Indeed. For he loved Shin Yue above all else, more than a sister, closer than kin. Witnessing his biological sister treat him in such a manner must have filled him with despair and anguish. Yet I recalled that when he discovered my transgressions, he had not exhibited such sorrow, only fury. Thus, I was never the child that family held dear. I stifled the tears welling in my eyes, attempting to rise and leave, only to be abruptly pulled back by him. If you go out now and encounter Shin Yue, she will undoubtedly tarnish your reputation. I managed a bitter smile. Even if I do not go out, she will still do so. True to form, Shin Yue, upon not finding me outside, chose to cast aspersions upon me nonetheless. I heard her voice ringing out, help. My brother's examination permit has been torn. Chapter 4. Before long, our parents arrived at the scene. What on earth happened? Dad. Mom. My brother has his college entrance examination tomorrow, and I came to cheer him on, only to find the room empty and his examination permit in tatters. What? They hurried inside, and indeed, a pile of fragments lay scattered on the floor. See, someone must have stealthily entered my second brother's room and torn his examination permit. Who could harbor such hatred for him to commit such an act? Father slammed his hand on the table with force. Who else could it be? Apart from Shin Miao. Who could stoop so low? In the past, Mother would have echoed their sentiments, belittling me to the point of wishing she had never borne such a troublesome child. However, now she seemed to have a sudden realization and quickly called my second brother. At that moment, he had already escaped with me through the window. Shinyi, where have you gone? Me? He feigned nonchalance. I am outside. I figured it best to stay at a hotel, closer to the exam venue, so I can get a bit more sleep. Is that so? What about your examination permit? Rest assured, I have both my ID and examination permit with me. But didn't your examination permit get torn? What? Torn? He pretended to be shocked. Fortunately, I printed a duplicate, so my exam will not be affected. Just then, Shinye's voice pierced through the air. Second brother. Who is trying to harm you? You must investigate this matter thoroughly. Shinyi scoffed. Do not worry, I shall investigate. But only after the examination, all right? With that, he hung up the phone. He then sat on the grass, staring blankly at the sky. I attempted to leave, but he grasped my arm once more. If you return now, you will only be scolded, and they might even throw you out. I shook my head. Who said I was going back? You are fleeing. Do you think I would not? Where are you going? For some reason, I perceived a glimmer of concern in his eyes. Was it merely an illusion? I silently pondered, how could he possibly care for me? He has previously stated that I am worth less than a dog. Yet, I failed to notice the flicker of pain that crossed my second brother's gaze. I shrugged off his hand. Do not concern yourself with my whereabouts. Initially, my thoughts were consumed with how to save my family. However, once outside, I suddenly felt it unnecessary to prolong the struggle with them. They had hurt me for so many years. Why should I still attempt to save them? At that moment, I was unaware that they could hear my innermost thoughts and were beginning to retaliate. My second brother merely watched as I walked away. My silhouette was more resolute than any figure he had ever seen depart. He belatedly rose to seek me out, yet scoured every street and alley without finding me. Handsome, would you like some candied hawthorn? He approached a familiar stall, only then realizing that this night market was a place he often frequented with Shin Yue. How laughable it was for him to seek me out in Shin Yue's favorite spot. What were the chances he would find me there? Yet, a wave of guilt suddenly washed over him. He realized he did not even know where Shin Miao typically went. He wandered the streets in a daze, only to collide with someone. Chapter 5. He quickly apologized, only to discover that it was his elder brother. Brother, what brings you here? His elder brother, too, appeared lost, his eyes red-rimmed. What are you doing here? At that moment, my second brother seemed to have found a lifeline, grasping his brother's arm and pouring out his woes. Brother, Shin Yue is trying to harm me. She tore my examination permit and attempted to frame Miao Miao. His elder brother replied, I know. Shin Yue is also trying to harm me. That drink indeed contained poison. She aimed to ensure my line would perish. What? She is truly so malicious. He had thought Shin Yege's actions towards him were already egregious, yet there was more to uncover. His elder brother managed a bitter smile. I treated her like a beloved sister, yet she has turned into a calamity. Had I not overheard Meow Meow speaking, I would likely have bled out on the operating table. By the way, brother, you can hear Meow Meow's thoughts too, right? He nodded. Does that mean Mother can hear them as well? No sooner had he finished speaking than they received a call from their mother. Meet me at Jin Chung Cafe. I will be waiting for you. I had walked for quite some time before finally arriving at the subway station. I took out the last 5 yuan I had and boarded the train to my friend's house. I merely requested to stay for one night, and she immediately agreed without further inquiry. She was aware of my plight. Previously, she had envied my family's wealth, but upon witnessing my predicament, she realized that not all young ladies lived in luxury. I had brought nothing with me except my backpack, for I truly had little to take. All I possessed were a few pieces of clothing, 2 pairs of shoes, my backpack, and some toilet paper. I lay on the floor, contemplating for a long while. Perhaps I should wait until tomorrow to find a dormitory. The cafeteria was hiring, which would provide free meals and a bit of salary. That way, I could afford the accommodation fees. Lost in thought, I gradually drifted into slumber. I dreamt of all the grievances I had suffered at the Shin household. Before Shin Yue arrived, I had been the apple of my parents' eyes, the prized possession of my 2 brothers, and Xiao Jiran had earnestly claimed that he would marry me. But everything changed with Shin Yue's arrival. She first feigned innocence to garner my sympathy, shadowing me closely, and then, at the opportune moment, pushed Xiao Jiran into the water and framed me for it. Xiao Jiran nearly drowned, and the Xiao and Shin families, once close, almost fell apart over the incident. After that, my parents were profoundly disappointed in me, and I became a thorn in the side of the Xiao family. I was subjected to familial punishment, the whip striking my frail body as I pleaded for their belief, but they regarded me with disdain, expressing regret for having borne me. My brothers no longer cast a glance in my direction, declaring that only a pure girl like Shin Yue was worthy of being their sister, while I, a sinner, was unworthy. In the final moments of my dream, I recalled being shoved down. The sensation of weightlessness jolted me awake. My heart raced violently, and unable to contain myself, I retched. Yet a hand reached out to me, gently wiping the corner of my mouth. I believed it was my friend and raised my head to say thank you. However, upon seeing the newcomers, I was taken aback. It was my mother and 2 older brothers. What were they doing here? Was I dreaming? This dream was far too surreal, bearing no resemblance to the anguish I had just experienced. I longed to collapse and continue sleeping, but my mother held me tightly. Meow meow. I am so sorry. Tears glistened in the eyes of my 2 brothers as well. Chapter 6. It took me 5 minutes to accept reality. They had somehow heard my innermost thoughts. No wonder they were acting so differently today, unlike in my previous life. But what about Xiao Jiran? Did he also? My mother grasped my hand and said, Meow meow, come with me. This time, I will protect you and ensure that Shin Yue cannot harm you in the slightest. I hesitated for a moment and then withdrew my hand. If you know what the future holds, then go and change it. As for me, I no longer wish to be part of your future, so there is no need for you to concern yourselves with me. A pang of pain shot through my mother's heart, and her eyes grew misty. Meow meow, are you still angry with me? For 10 years, I favored someone unworthy and neglected you. Please allow me to make it up to you, will you? My mother had already secretly visited the company. Although some old rogues had allied with your father, it is not too late. I have sought help from your grandfather. His family is influential, and those people are driven by profit. They will eventually support us. Your grandfather is deeply pained by these events and even reprimanded me. I truly understand my mistakes. For now, why don't you stay at your grandfather's house? My mother always used this sweet talk, just as she did with Shin Yue. But she failed to realize that Shin Yue had no interest in her. What Shin Yue disregarded was what I yearned to possess. Yet, when I finally had it, I found myself indifferent. Still, I nodded and said, all right, I will stay at my grandfather's. However, do not come to disturb me, otherwise, I will apply to stay in the school dormitory. They seemed to want to say something more, but I dismissed them all. This is my friend's home. You have already intruded, so leave quickly. With that, I resolutely shut the door. They stared at the door with tearful eyes for a long while. And it was only when my eldest brother urged my mother to take care of herself that they helped each other leave. The next day, due to the college entrance examination, our school was designated as an examination venue, and all classes were suspended. I could only shoulder my backpack and hurry to my grandfather's house. However, halfway there, I encountered a luxury vehicle. Chapter 7. The driver spotted me and quickly rolled down the window. "Excuse me, are you Miss Shin Miao Miao?" I nodded. "Please, get in. Our boss is waiting for you." I hesitated for a moment, but how can I be sure you are a good person? Just then, the car door opened. And sitting in the back was a person dressed plainly yet exuding an extraordinary demeanor. If he did not reveal his age, I would truly mistake him for a middle-aged man. "Miao Miao, do you not remember me? I held you when you were little." "Grandfather," I exclaimed excitedly as I jumped into the car. "You haven't changed at all. You are just as you were in my childhood. Look at this child, how eloquent." Previously, her mother always spoke ill of her, but I never believed it. This child's nature is not bad. How could she possibly bully her sister? It seems that sister is not so innocent after all. A veil of mist clouded my eyes. A relative I had not seen in 10 years could believe in me. Yet my family, with whom I lived daily, refused to do so. The driver chuckled, "The young lady has been overly protected by you," to the extent that she was schemed against by her husband, unaware even that he had a mistress outside. My grandfather snorted coldly, "She is just foolish. She cannot blame others. To bully her own daughter for the sake of an illegitimate child, this is the first time I have seen such a thing." It seemed my grandfather had indeed reprimanded my mother. Tentatively, I asked, "Can my mother reclaim her shares in the company?" My grandfather smiled, "If I am helping her, how could she not reclaim them? If not, she should forget about being a boss and instead sit in prison, living off the state." Such a remark about living off the state. It appeared my grandfather was still quite strict with my mother. A sense of foreboding suddenly gripped my heart. My grandfather wouldn't pressure me, would he? As expected, he began to critique my academic performance and mentioned hiring a tutor for me, who would be arriving shortly. From that day forth, I was thrust into a life of relentless study. Although I spent my days buried in books and exercises, I felt a sense of joy at my grandfather's house. After all, for a child who has known little love, having someone care is a form of happiness. Here, I did not have to stay in the servants' quarters. Nor did I have to cater to Shinya's preferences for every meal, nor did I need to tread carefully or compromise. Here, I had my own spacious room, could choose my own meals, and could freely joke with my grandfather. My grandmother had passed away long ago, but the old man naturally occupied the space. However, since my arrival, he had even hired a nanny. Yet, the days spent at home always felt fleeting, and soon the college entrance examination was approaching its end. That day, my grandfather gazed at me for a long time before finally saying, "Aren't you going to see your brother?" Only then did I realize he had finished his exams. But before I could respond, I heard commotion at the door. "Grandfather, I've come to see you." Chapter 8. My grandfather removed his glasses. Shinyi has arrived. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear." Upon hearing this, Shinya's eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope. "Really? Did Miao Miao mention me? Has she been thinking of my exams?" My grandfather chuckled, "You little rascal. Can't it be that I have been thinking of you?" Shinyi awkwardly smiled, "Yes, yes. The younger generation is at fault. Your sister is still studying. She probably has questions she does not understand. Why don't you go in and help her?" However, I swiftly locked the room door. Shinyi glanced awkwardly at my grandfather, who pretended not to notice and continued fiddling with his glasses. Just then, my mother followed in. Upon seeing her, my grandfather's expression darkened further. My mother could only force a smile. "Dad, I brought the child to see you." "Huh. It's been 10 years since I last saw the child, and now you know to bring her to see me. If it weren't for you being deceived by your husband to the point of losing your undergarments, would you have come to see me?" My mother's thoughts were exposed, and naturally, she lowered her head in shame. "Dad, I am sorry for you and Mom, and I have failed my daughter. I am a failed daughter and a failed mother." My grandfather put on his glasses. "How is the situation with your company? After learning that I intended to reclaim your project, those old rogues turned against me and are willing to support me. We have already discussed ousting him from the company." At that moment, Shinyi came down the stairs with a sullen expression. "Grandfather, Miao Miao still wants to acknowledge me. What should I do? Rome wasn't built in a day. Now that your exams are over, make sure to visit her more. Even if she does not forgive you, do not hold it against her." Shinyi shook his head. How could I blame her? I only blame myself for believing that illegitimate daughter's slander. My grandfather then cautiously inquired, but even if she is an illegitimate child, she shares the same father as you. You used to have such a deep bond. Even if your father falls, you would still take in the sister, right? Shinyi waved his hand dismissively. Impossible. I will not acknowledge Yue as my sister. Acknowledging her now is merely a pretense. Once my father falls from grace, I will make them pay. My grandfather then breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, at least he is not beyond redemption. Chapter 9. Soon, the school season arrived. I did not wish to draw attention to myself, so I took the subway to school. However, upon arriving, I discovered that my desk and chair were infested with ants. Those insects crawled ominously, yet they congregated solely at my desk, avoiding all others. Was there any need to question this? Clearly, someone had sprayed some kind of herbicide on my desk. It was none other than Yue who dared to act in such a manner. Previously, I refrained from confronting her, fearing her retaliation. However, now I seized Yue and dragged her outside. What are you doing? A piercing scream echoed, yet no one dared to intervene. Just days prior, the Xiao family publicly announced the dissolution of their engagement with Yue at a charity gala. Although she had the backing of the Shin family, the lack of support from the Xiao family left her vulnerable, and she was soon cast aside like a fallen wall. I brought Yue to the refuse corner and delivered a resounding slap across her face. What a relief. In that moment, I felt a rush of vitality course through my veins. Yue clutched one side of her face, staring at me in disbelief. You actually dared to hit me. After all the vile things you've done, do you think I can't strike you? To my astonishment, Yue retaliated furiously. Shin Miao Miao, you bullied me first. Why did Xiao Jiran suddenly break off our engagement? Was it not you who stirred up trouble? I was baffled. What does it have to do with me? I've been locked up by my grandfather for extra lessons. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't even have known about your split with Xiao Jiran. Could it be that he overheard our conversation and sent someone to investigate, discovering your entanglements with multiple suitors? But why can't he publicly state the reasons for the annulment? This situation makes it seem like I was the one meddling. Just then, Yue yanked me toward the trash can and forcefully shoved my face into it. Shin Miao Miao. The Xiao and Shin families were always mine. Why do you persist in competing with me? Why? I disregarded the contents of the trash and grabbed a pencil lead, stabbing it at her. Blood gushed forth. I broke free from her grasp, intending to escape, only to unexpectedly encounter a familiar face around the corner. Xiao Jiran. What are you? At that moment, Yue quickly prostrated herself, feigning distress. Shin Miao Miao. You have such a cruel heart. Knowing that I play the piano, you deliberately want to ruin my hands. I instinctively retorted, what nonsense are you spouting? You were the one who shoved me into the trash can. How was I to know you wouldn't suffocate me? Yet Yue crawled over, pitifully grasping Xiao Jiran's pant leg. Brother Jiran, sister wants to harm me. Please save me. However, Xiao Jiran disdainfully kicked her away. We are no longer connected. There's a public phone over there. You can call for help yourself. No. Yue clutched his clothing in a frenzy. Why? Why treat me this way? You still have feelings for Shin Miao Miao, don't you? Is it worth it to break off our engagement for her? She nearly caused your demise years ago. I couldn't help but roll my eyes, internally scoffing. You were the one who pushed him, yet you insist on framing me. But then I noticed something peculiar in Xiao Jiran's gaze. Wait, could he actually hear my thoughts? Did he hear me? Chapter 10. He nodded in astonishment, seemingly responding to my unspoken words. I awkwardly smiled, preparing to leave, only to be seized by Yue, who clutched my ankle. Shin Miao Miao, you harmed me, and you think you can just walk away? I looked at my ankle, stained with her blood, and couldn't help but kick her away. Get off me, you're filthy. Xiao Jiran calmly turned to her. You were the one who pushed me into the pool, weren't you? Yue looked up at him, astonished. Brother Jiran, why would you say that? It wasn't me. Initially, I chose to spare you the embarrassment of revealing the reason for our annulment. However, I no longer feel the need to protect your dignity. With that, he made a phone call, instructing, make the reason for the annulment public. Inform everyone that Yue was the one who cheated first, entangled with 8 suitors, and attempted to harm me in childhood, framing Shin Miao Miao for it. Such abhorrent behavior should never allow her to step foot in the Xiao family again. Yue shook her head in disbelief, tears streaming down her cheeks like pearls. No, Xiao Jiran, How could you know about Shin Miao Miao? Did you say that? Suddenly, she seemed to lose her mind, attempting to strike me, yet the voice on the phone brought her back to reality. By the way, young master, Shin Yue's father has encountered trouble. It seems there was infighting within their company, and her father has lost. Furthermore, it appears Shin Yue is not even his biological daughter, but rather the illegitimate child of her father and a mistress. This news has already spread like wildfire. And if you're interested, you can check the trending topics. It's fortunate you annulled your engagement with this woman beforehand, otherwise, our reputation would have been dragged down by this illegitimate child. In just a few short sentences, Shin Yue collapsed once more. How could this be? How could my father lose? He promised he would drive that woman away and marry my mother. I couldn't help but smile, relieved that this worthless father figure had not prevailed this time. Now, they had not only lost their jobs, but also their reputation. The news of Shin Yue being an illegitimate child quickly spread through the streets, along with the exposure of her mother's affair. Notably, her mother was preparing to flee, abandoning both her lover and daughter. In no time, their once happy family had turned into adversaries. My father was kicked out and burdened with enormous debts. Just as he sought solace from his mistress, he discovered she had absconded with all the properties, cars, jewelry, and luxury items he had given her. As for Shin Yue, before leaving, she begged her mother to take her along, but her mother, true to her character, ignored her pleas. Shin Yue was left to seek refuge with her brothers, believing they would still care for her as before, only to be confronted with damning evidence, a test report, and a voice recording. Chapter 11. Shin Yue. You are truly disgusting. On what grounds do you think we would take you in? Not only will we not, but we will also reclaim everything that belongs to us, including your exorbitant tuition fees, your clothes and shoes, your piano room and dance studio. None of it is yours anymore, and your bank account has been frozen. From now on, you owe us 30,000 a month. Otherwise, we reserve the right to sue you for infringing upon our parents' marital property. Shin Yue was utterly panicked, nearly fleeing in despair. How could they find all this out? They had long known, but they played ignorant, treating her family like a game. No. Even if she is cornered, she still has her father. She thought a malnourished camel was bigger than a horse. Little did she realize, her father's situation was far worse than mere job loss. He was now burdened with colossal debts due to allegations of transferring marital assets. Her father grasped her hand. Yeah. I will rise again. Will you stay with me through this? Yet Shin Yue disdainfully pushed his hand away. Get away, you useless wretch. You made me lose to that wretched Shin Miao Miao. Now you're just a rat scurrying through the streets. Get lost. I'm just an illegitimate child. I don't have a father like you. Her desperate attempts to distance herself from her father ignited his rage. In a fit of emotion, he stabbed Shin Yue 3 times in public. You're just like your mother, shameless. You clung to me when I had money, and now that I'm broke, you run away. Your mother fled quickly. Now you can die in her place. This incident rapidly dominated the local trending topics. I read the news, learning that Shin Yue had become a vegetable, reliant on a respirator for life. The moment she was disconnected from the machine, she would perish. Yet, having no one to care for her, the exorbitant hospital bills would go unpaid, forcing her to end her own life. Meanwhile, my despicable father was sentenced to death for intentional injury. Before my door, a plethora of gifts has amassed from visitors, delectable sweets favored by little girls, dolls, figurines cherished by teenagers, elegant dresses, and even golden trinkets and property deeds appealing to women. Your mother, elder brother, second brother, and a young man named Xiao Jiran have all come, expressing their desire to see you. Yet, you remain unwilling to meet them? At this moment, their voices reverberate in my ears. Ching, your mother has purchased a house for you, paid in full. However, I am uncertain about your preferred style of decoration. Would you be willing to come out and discuss it with me? Ching, I was wrong. I acknowledge my past mistakes. Now that I have graduated from university and am capable, I used my first month's salary to buy you a handbag. Do take a look and see if it pleases you. Ching, is your academic pressure overwhelming? Do you require my assistance with your studies? Although my second brother may not excel in other areas, he is quite proficient academically. I am Xiao Jiran. I understand your reluctance to meet me. I apologize, for I have always harbored feelings for you. The misunderstanding during that incident by the water led me to hastily pursue a relationship with Shin Yue. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, I wish to be with you again. Would you consider it? My grandfather spoke of their sincerity, and Xiao Jiren even contemplated kneeling. I chose to feign ignorance, focusing intently on my homework. Observing my unwavering demeanor towards them, my grandfather refrained from further comments. Very well, continue your studies. But do not neglect the balance between work and life. In the past, I was solely focused on your mother's studies, and as a result, she lacked the discernment to choose a suitable partner. I paused my writing. In light of my grandfather's words, I resolved to dismiss Xiao Jiren first. I expected my grandfather to admonish me for my perceived rudeness, yet to my surprise, he indeed ordered Xiao Jiren to leave. A man who does not inspire trust is best left behind. Now, let us see the remaining 3 out as well. It was one thing to expel a stranger, but these 3 were my family. However, I deemed my grandfather sufficient as family. I glanced at him, and he fortuitously met my gaze. We exchanged a knowing smile. The end. Thank you for listening. I look forward to our next story.